think the most important thing with stress is being conscious of it. I think a lot of the time, and it's become a bit of a joke between me and my wife now, because when she sees me stressed and my eyebrows are furrowed, and I'm like, she can see I'm stressed. And often she'll say to me, "What are you stressed about?" And I'll think for a second. I go, "I don't remember."
Welcome to episode 35. Now, guys, question for you. Have you ever heard of something called lion's mane? It's this superfood. It's a mushroom that's been talked about a lot. And I have mentioned it in a previous episode. And it's been quite amazing for me. I've had memories of being a child that I've completely forgot about. And they continue to come in since I've started taking it. But yeah, I'll change subjects on that. The reason why I brought that up is because I'm on the email list of the company, obviously, I buy it from, and the emails are incredible. And one of them came through around stress cycles. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to Justin, the founder of the business for Superfoods. And he is on the show, you guys. That is the interview I have coming up. So here's a little bit of backstory around Justin, and you're going to get to meet him in a minute. So over 20 years ago, Justin was traveling around India where he discovered spirulina. You guys maybe heard of that. It's kind of like an algae sort of substance. And from there, that superfood really transformed his health. So he traveled around the world finding incredible foods and bringing them to Australia as close as possible to their natural state. And that's why I actually get the lion's mane from these guys, because it is actually the mushroom grown in Australia, freeze taking the actual mushroom. So now Forest Superfoods has grown to become the leading superfood store in Australia with well over 200,000 sales to date. He has said no to some incredible business opportunities. You're going to hear about those. You're going to hear, his rituals, his thoughts on stress, and why actually maybe we need it sometimes, amongst many other great tips around growing your business and being a leader. So I'm very, very excited to welcome Justin to the show. Hey guys, welcome. This is Justin. Now, I've been talking about a supplement that I've been taking for a while called Lion's Mane. This is the dude that makes it. His company makes it, you guys. So I'm so excited that he's on. There's multiple reasons why I brought him on, not only to talk about his business, his backstory, but also his thoughts on stress, because he's really good at email marketing and education in the business. And I got an email that prompted me to reach out to him. So, hey, Justin, welcome.
Hey, Heather, thanks for having me on.
So good to have you. I want to start with your backstory, because we were just bantering a bit about your business. Yes. Talk to me a bit about your business and where it all started, and the previous name as well.
Yeah, so when I was straight out of high school, I wanted to travel. And so I traveled all over the world, and I spent a lot of time in India specifically. And when I was in India, I found spirulina, and I'd never heard of it before. It was this weird kind of algae that people ate, as they had them like chips back then. And so you'd eat these like spirulina chips. They were amazing. It sounds awful, but they were actually amazing. And I was vegetarian at the time, and I really felt really good when I started eating the spirulina, and my brain kind of made this connection between the foods we eat have a direct impact on our health and our well-being. And it seems like such an obvious kind of correlation now. But even my cousin's a doctor, and he said in when they were studying medicine, they do 3 hours of nutrition or something. There's still a big part of society that doesn't really link food and nutrition with health and well-being. But I'd seen that connection from there, and I'd been thinking about it for a long time. And I thought, if people can improve their health and improve their well-being just by taking some of these strange foods like spirulina chips, then that's going to be something that people are going to want to do, because Western medicine's incredible and has some really good advantages, and has some things that it does really well. But there's often side effects and complications that come from different Western medicines. Whereas with these superfoods, they're just foods. Like the lion's mane, it's just a mushroom. It's not so different to going and buying portobello mushrooms down at the supermarket. It's just a different type of mushroom that happens to have certain compounds in it that can be really good for brain health and for concentration and productivity and all that kind of thing. So from about 20, I had a different business then, selling these leather bags online. And
Love it.
I've still got that. I've still got that business actually, but it just kind of sits on the side. It's called Happy Cow, and we just do like leather pocket bags and stuff, and bum bags and that kind of thing.
Okay, cool.
And even before Joe Rogan made them cool, I was doing that. But back then, so that business, when I started that business, I loved it. I used to do festivals and like sell these bags and sell them. Most of the customers have always been in the US, but
Yeah.
there was never the demand for them. Like it was like I kind of had to create an industry because the only bum bags you could get were from the $2 shop, and we were selling them for $150 because they're like a
Right.
high end premium leather. Hand stitched, all this kind of thing. And there wasn't really a market for it. And so I'd always had in the back of my mind, it'd be great to start a business where you don't have to do the hard sell. Because I was going into fashion stores and trying to sell these bags, and 99 of the doors you'd knock on, they'd go, I'm not interested. And the other 1%, they'd say the boss isn't here. And
Right,
so like
of course. Yeah.
it was such a hard slog, and I'd always grown up doing the hard sell thing. I'd grown up selling products door to door and doing telesales and all that kind of stuff from when I was about 16 to 22 or something. I was doing all that stuff, and
Wow.
I hated it, and I don't know if anyone.
It's a hard slog.
It's so hard, and you also like you feel like you have to sell your soul because it's all that matters is making a sale. And so you're encouraged in those environments, whether it's done indirectly or directly, but you're encouraged to kind of like bend the truth a little bit and, get people talking and build a rapport and all that kind of thing. But the only purpose was just to sell. And so I got some really good skills from that in terms of sales, but also learned what I didn't want to do. And what I didn't want to do was have to do the hard sell. I'm just not interested. I don't think that's a good business. That's not the way I want to live my life, is trying to pressure people into buying stuff. And so then, just before I turned 30, I kept thinking about these superfoods and stuff. And there was only 2 sellers, maybe in Australia, about 10 years ago. There's only about 2 sellers online. And I thought, we can come in and do this. And when I looked at how much I could buy them for, the superfoods, if I went direct to Peru and went direct to India and, all these different places where they come from, I realized that there was huge margins in them compared, like what everyone else was selling for. They were ripping people off massively. And so I thought I could come in and be the lower end of the market and kind of get the mass market and make it affordable for everyone. So I started the business and I called it Cheap Superfoods. And and at the time it made a lot of sense. And then I had a business partner back then, and one day we were sitting at our desks and I turned to and we were selling the highest quality stuff because I don't want to sell something that I don't want to take. And I don't want to take crappy quality stuff that's imported from questionable sources, that's got chemicals in it, that's got all these different fillers. I just want to take the best quality stuff. So if I'm going to take the best quality stuff, that's the stuff I want to sell, because I'm not going to sell and put my name on something that I wouldn't take myself or I wouldn't give to my family. And so we were selling the highest quality, certified organic, no fillers, like the best quality stuff we could find, but it was called Cheap Superfoods. And there was a real kind of like disconnect there between being price focused, but also being quality focused. And so I turned to him one day when we were sitting at our desk and I went, do you like the name Cheap Superfoods? He goes, nah, I hate it. And I go, I'm embarrassed to tell people the name of the business. And that night we went across all of our marketing, the website, everything, and we changed the word cheap to forest and started doing like protecting endangered rainforests as part of our offering and all that kind of thing. And overnight everything changed. And that was a really good lesson in terms of like, I'd always thought that people care about price because people are always contacting you going, can I get a discount? Why is it so expensive? Can I get cheaper? But then I realized in that moment, people actually don't care about price. They care about value. No one's thinking a Porsche is overpriced. They're going, that's the value of that level of car. They make 6 of them a year. This is all the work that goes into it. It's valued at, the $1 million price tag, whatever it is. And so I realized that I shouldn't compete on price because there's always going to be someone who can eat for less than you can. I grew up in my grandfather's jewellery stores in Sydney Road, Brunswick, which is a very popular shopping district in Melbourne. And he used to say that to me, he'd say, there's always someone who can eat for less than you can. Don't compete on price. Find something else that you can do, that you can offer to make you stand out from other people other than the price. Because once you start competing on price, it's a race to the bottom, and nobody ends
Absolutely
up making
agree.
money. And it's just, it's not the kind of business I want to run. I want to run a bit. And so we're certainly not the cheapest. We might be, I don't know if we're the most expensive either in terms of like the mushrooms and the superfoods industry and that kind of thing. But what we do is we give people confidence that they're getting the highest quality product. And I
That's
think
exactly what you guys do. Yeah.
and that's been our focus. Yeah.
What wanted to add to that, no worries, Justin, all good.
Yeah.
That's what got me, by the way, when I was looking around. It's also that you do really good education. Like there's a lot of touch points that you do where there's so much value in the brand. That's what got me. And it's your education still that you send out every single email. You're not just trying to flog a product. You're doing backstory, you're doing education, you're going like, hey, if you have this will help and this is why. There's a lot of thought that has gone into your brand.
Yeah, and the email marketing stuff, it's again, it was a really important lesson that took me far too long to learn. But I look at what the big guys are doing, and I look at their emails, and I see all these fancy colors and all this fancy design and all this buy. This is on sale. This is discounted 2 for 1. And I thought that's what you're meant to do. And when I get those emails, I hate them. I delete them straight away. And I wanted I wanted people to look forward to getting my emails. I wanted people to save the emails, to pass them on to other people, to get value from the emails. And a lot of that came from, do you know Alex Hormozi on YouTube?
Yes, of course. Yes.
I got obsessed with him for like 3 months, like just watching everything. Like I think my wife was getting jealous at one point because it was just like constant, like Alex Hormozi, everything. Read all his books, everything. And his whole thing is about, it's again about value. He's like, give away the value. And this ties into the whole thing about not wanting to do a hard sell as well. Is like, give people all the value, all the information, everything you have to give, and then they will come to you and buy on their own. You don't even have to make the call and asking for the sale. It's just going to happen on its own. And so that's our philosophy now with the email marketing and with everything else. It's like, and it's kind of funny because people will contact and, there'll be a random person who'll email and say, if you don't do X, I'm not going to buy from you. And I'm like, so don't buy,
Exactly.
I don't mind. Like I want people to enjoy the products and I want people to get the most they can out of the product. But if it's not right for someone, that's okay. And I don't apologize for the fact that we're more expensive. There are cheaper options available for people who want a cheaper product. But for those people like myself and you who value having a high quality product,
that's it.
That's what Frozen Superfoods is there for. And I don't need to be, Coles asked us to supply them last year. And I said no, because I didn't want to get into that whole thing of like, if your shipment's half an hour late, they send it all back. If they decide to put a sale on, they're going to deduct it from your invoice. I just didn't want to be in that kind of scenario where like, it's just a mass market, like, making cents on the dollar, trying to survive and being dependent on one of these large supermarkets. I want to be able to do it my way. And it was the same. I don't know if you know about the crowdfunding thing that I was going to do. And I spent literally 3 months of my life, like it's a big deal doing the crowdfunding. There's a huge amount of paperwork and documentation and legal stuff and everything that has to be done. And I did all of it. And then we got to the night before it was meant to launch. And I got this, I can't even remember if it was a call or an email, but so this older woman contacted me and she said, I've been a fan for years. I love what you guys do. I don't have much money. I've got a couple of $100 saved up. I want to invest it in you guys when you go live with this crowdfunding thing. And in that moment, it was a real honor that someone wanted to do that and they trusted in me that much. But then I went, what's going to happen to my values and my integrity when I feel like I have to make money? Someone else is dependent on me to make money. And someone else is dependent on me with their life savings. And I wanted to be able to keep it. And I wonder if that's what kind of happens in these big corporations as well, where you see they start doing dodgy things and they start, they get in trouble for what's happening with Koyo now, with, having dairy in the product where it was meant to be dairy free and all these kind of things that happen. I wonder if it's a point because there's so much pressure on you to provide returns to the shareholders and to be able to every year, grow compared to the last year and all this pressure that can then, it makes it too tempting for people to do things that they usually wouldn't do and go against their own morals and their own ethics code because they feel compelled to, because there's other people who are dependent on them.
It's
and
a really,
I never wanted
really
to do
good
that.
point. Yeah, you know what? And over the interviews I've done so far in this show with different everyone that's kind of growing their business, they all say the no is more important than the yes. And you have just backed that, through multiple examples, and that's incredible. Like a huge chain like Kohl's approaches you, and for you to say no, not for me, that's incredibly powerful that you did that, and you knew the strength of doing that as well.
Yeah, and it's also like, I think, like I'm obsessed with e-commerce, and I have been for 20 years, and it's been a big part of my life, and I've always thought about like how the most difficult business to run is the business turning over less than $1 million, because then you're doing everything yourself. You're the accountant and you're the warehouse staff and you're the customer service and you're everything. But once it gets past that point, I think it gets a lot easier. Once you can afford to start getting other people involved and getting them to specialize in certain areas of business, the business really takes a huge leap forward, and it takes the workload off you. And so now I don't have to do any of that stuff. I could just focus on growing the business. And so I just have an incredible team around me, and so they handle all the day-to-day stuff, and I'm just focused on like checking in with them and like the growing of the business. And I like being in that position. And if I got Kohl's or Woolworths or some of these massive players on who, and they expect that if they call you in the middle of the night, you have to answer the phone. You work for them, and I don't want to do that. And I think there's not enough conversation in our society about how valuable time is, and how valuable lifestyle is. And there's a certain point where we should all, especially as business owners, if your whole life is just working 16 hours a day and you're not enjoying it, you're better off having a job. Because that way at least, or if there's no path out of that either, if it's been like that forever, then I think in that scenario, I'd rather have a job, and at least that way I get I work for 8 hours, but I get the other 8 hours with my kids and with my family and doing the things that I enjoy. And I think our time is the only thing that really matters, and we're all going to be dead soon. And it's just the time that matters, and the time with your kids and the time with your family and your loved ones and doing things you enjoy. That's what matters, not the money. And so I think that for business owners, there should really be you should be aware that the money doesn't really matter all that much. As long as you can pay your bills, everything else on top of that is a bonus. And so, especially like I've got a 5-year-old now, next year's going to be at school, and I think that's a different scenario, but while he's at home, I want to be able to spend time with him. And so I'm really focused on like making sure that my life isn't just revolved around work. And I think as a business owner, that was one of the things I wanted to talk to you about actually, is, for the first couple of years when I was running Forest Superfoods, I was really focused on sitting at my desk at 9 o'clock, and I'd sit there till 5 p.m. and end up spending like 90% of the time on Facebook, just like browsing Facebook. And I realized, exactly. And I realized then that like, actually, it's not about the hours you put in. It's about what you get out from the work that you put in. The hours don't matter. You're almost better doing less hours, but making those hours more consistent. And so after 20 years, I've fine-tuned that to the point where I can sit down and do an hour, and that hour can have a massive difference to the bottom line and to the customer experience and to whatever other facet of the business that I'm working on, without having to slog it out for 8 hours. I could just focus and go, well, what's the most important thing that needs to be done that's going to have the biggest impact, and just focus on that. And so again, it comes down to like the time management part of things, and being able to work out what do you really need to do, and what's just wasting time, and what can you give to other people to do.
I want to ask you a question around stress, because we all go through it. You and I talked before the show. It's not something you can ever truly get away from, but I did love your email on the stress cycle. What are your thoughts around stress? Like, is it something that we have to live with? How do we deal with it?
I mean, I think the most important thing with stress is being conscious of it. I think a lot of the time, and it's become a bit of a joke between me and my wife now, because when she sees me stressed and my eyebrows are furrow and I'm like, she can see I'm stressed. And often she'll say to me, what are you stressed about? And I'll think for a second. I go, I don't remember. It was a while ago. I don't actually remember what it was. But that is I think that's a real good insight into how our brains often are. Often we're not even aware why we are stressed or why we are agitated. And just asking yourself that question of what am I stressing about? Can have a profound impact on our well-being, because I know for me, and I think I got it from my dad, because I remember him being stressed a lot, but this idea of I should just be stressed. If you're stressed, you're working. I don't know if you're a big Seinfeld fan, but there's an episode with George where he works out that if he looks stressed and angry, the boss thinks he's being really productive, and and the boss comes in and says, "Can you do this?" And he's like, "Oh," and the boss is like, "Sorry." And that's kind of true in society as well. Is this idea of whoever's working themselves hardest, whoever's the most stressed out, well, they're obviously doing good work. And I don't think that's accurate at all. And so,
one of the taglines I say is, stop wearing busyness as a badge of honor.
Yeah, exactly. Because it doesn't mean anything. And I often get people, if I email someone and then they don't come back to, they're like, sorry, I've been so busy. I flew to this country and I had a meeting here. And I'm like, I don't mind. I emailed you yesterday. It's not a big deal. And I think, so I think the main thing that I try and do is to go back and go what am I stressing about? What's the actual issue here? And often it's nothing, or it's something small, or it's something I could just deal with. It's just a matter of sending an email to someone or calling someone or taking some action, and then it kind of goes away. But I think, I think people who are ambitious and driven, I think that stress is almost like the whip on yourself that keeps you moving. That stress and that agitation, that not being satisfied, that kind of propels you forward to the next step and the next step and the next step. And and my wife will actually say to me, why are you trying to grow the business? It's big enough already. And I'll say, because there's no such thing as standing still in the world. Everything's always changing. Everything's moving. And if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. And part of moving forward, it doesn't necessarily mean you're trying to grow your bank account, but a lot of time it could just be trying to make things better for the customer, and trying to make the experience better for the customer, and trying to make your products better, and trying to make the website process more smooth for people and all that kind of thing. That's part of growth, is about improving what you're doing. And so I'm always focused on growing and doing things better. And Alex Hormozi had a really good thing about that, because he talked about how people will always try and do new stuff. They're they want to expand and start doing a new category of products, or they want to expand into a new country, or they want to, sell on new platforms or whatever it is. But actually, just if what you're doing now is working, just make that better. Because if what you're doing is working now, making it better is very likely going to make a big difference to your bottom line. But doing something new, you got a 1 in 10 chance it's even going to work. Whereas if what you're doing is working, just improve on that and just make that better. And I thought that was another brilliant nugget from Alex Hormozi about just really focus on making things better what's already working, just do that better. And so that's how we kind of, it's so simple. And that's part of the email marketing as well. Our email marketing was working with the traditional way of doing these fancy emails and stuff. But then I went, well, what is it that makes that we can do better than these big kind of vitamin companies or whatever could do? When I could talk from my personal experience. I can talk as one human being to another human being, whereas these big companies aren't going to do that, because they're made up of 5,000 different people. It's not just one voice that's driving that ship. And so that's why we've changed that direction with email, and it's amazing the response we've gotten. And at the end of the day, I just think about myself, and I think I get so many emails and they're so annoying. I don't want to be contributing to that. So here's a way that I can make emails more interesting for people and give people value from the emails, and people seem to really be loving them. But yeah,
You guys will have to go buy. You'll have to go buy his products. I have to interrupt because this is the moment for me to say, go buy your products, and go get on his email list, because every single business owner has something to learn by the emails that Justin sends out. I wanted
that's
to
very kind.
yeah, it's true. You have brilliant email marketing. I wanted to ask you about leadership, because you said that
Yes.
you no longer in the it's like the day to day. You're now managing your team. You're focusing
Yeah.
on these little pieces to make it better and better in all the different areas.
Yeah.
Were you always a good leader, or did you have to learn?
I don't even know if I'm a good leader now, but I think I go back to what I would want if I was working for someone else, and I try and implement that with my staff. And what I would want is, I wouldn't want someone looking over my shoulder all the time. I would want someone to give me autonomy and power to make decisions in my role. And I'd want to be well compensated for the work I do. And I'd want to work hard and be rewarded, you know, in terms of money, basically, for the extra hard work that I put in. And so I do all that stuff with my staff. But in terms of like being a good leader, I don't know. Like, I don't have a business plan. I never have. I don't have targets or goals or anything like that. It really just comes down to like, how can we do what we're doing better? And that's the focus that I look at in every different aspect of the business. And I spend a lot of time with the staff. And it hasn't always, you know, I've been running my business for 20 years now. And I've had some really interesting staff come on board that it just didn't work at all. Like, we're very different personalities and different values and whatever. And so, you know, those people have obviously gone. But then when I find someone who I really love working with them and they love working with me and we have similar values, I hold on to them, because they're hard to find. And I think a big part of it is like having the right people around you and investing in those people as well. And my grandfather, I used to say to because my grandfather would talk about staff turnover, and I'd say, you know, what if you hire these people and you put all this work into training them and they leave? And he'd say, well, what if you don't train them and they stay? And I was like, of course. You have to invest in people, you know, and that's part of the exchange. Is like, I'm teaching them about, you know, how I run my business and how things work in this kind of e-commerce health food space, and they're bringing their own skills to the table, and there's this trade-off. And we're kind of like, at the end of the day, you know, the buck stops with me, and I'm responsible for all the bad stuff that happen, any issues that happen, and I'm responsible for everything, every facet of the business. But I really like to let people, I try to think of it as we're just a team working together, and I'm not there to dictate orders, and I'm not there to tell people what to do, and I'm not like, you know, it's my way or the highway. I'm like, we work together and we communicate between us to work out what's best for the customer. And so I have this really good communication, really good dialogue with all of the staff, and
Brilliant.
I hire everyone myself, and, you know, and I have a very close relationship with everybody. And I think the leadership part of it is really just about treating each other like human beings, you know, like just working, just working together, you know, like that. And I think often you get business owners who have this idea that somehow they're smarter than everyone else. And I think that causes issues. And I don't think I'm smarter than everyone else at all. I think I'm probably more stubborn. And I, for some reason, I don't, like, my brain doesn't shut off. So I can put in more hours than what other people can. And I'd happily work all night if my wife would let me. You know, sometimes I just get in this thing where I'm like enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm coming up with all these good ideas, and, you know, I'm revolutionizing the website or you know, the email marketing, whatever it is. And I want to keep working on that. And so I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And because I enjoy it, over 20 years, it creates this, you know, this great business that people love, that's, you know, quite far ahead of a lot of the other people that are, you know, in this space. And so I don't think it's anything to do with intelligence. It's just luck and perseverance.
It's also your passion. You're very passionate, and you're quite humble. as well. I mean, you built something absolutely massive, and I'm loving how you're talking about it in a very different way than probably most of these like big guru types would be like, yeah, I've like crushed this, No, you have a really great grounded approach. And on that, I want to know a bit about your rituals. What are a couple of rituals that you do daily to bring yourself and your family more joy?
Exercise is a big one for me.
Yep.
And I think
Yep.
I've only recently just started doing weights. This year I've started doing weights. Now I'm 39, and I've from everything I've been reading, I'm obsessed with Andrew Huberman as well, his podcast as well. And
I know that
big
one,
thing he
yeah.
talks, a lot of stuff that he talks about is like how your muscle. You'll start having muscle decline from around the age 40 if you're not working out. So I've started doing gym and I love it. And, and saunas and we've got a dam. We live on a farm and we've got a dam here.
Yeah.
And so I'm going in the dam 3 times a week for a cold plunge. And I like those kind of things I love. And I think also I've got this theory that like the human brain needs challenges. And if we don't challenge ourselves, then we'll find problems in our life and create the challenges out of things that are happening in our day-to-day life, whether it's with our loved ones or in our business or whatever. We'll create these struggles for ourselves. So I go in the dam or in the sauna or do a hard workout, say every single day, in order to give my brain that challenge and to push my brain further. And I think that makes even though I'm sure I'm still quite difficult to live with, I think that makes me like a lot easier to get along with because I've created those challenges for myself and I've put my brain through those hard struggles. And so I guess, I don't know, there's just something about like Joe Rogan, who I'm more obsessed with than the other ones, but Joe Rogan always talks about how like the hardest thing that's ever happened to you, or the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And the worst thing that's ever happened to you could be someone else takes your parking spot at the supermarket. It's all relative. And by putting our bodies through stress and our brains through stress and struggle, it does something where it makes the rest of our lives it makes it it makes it easier because you've done that difficult thing. And I think it's also really good. Like, I think other people like this, or it could just be me. Maybe I'm just admitting to mental illness here, but I have this voice in my brain that's always commenting on everything and always narrating everything and always like, and quite negative. It go, why did you do that? And why did that person say that? And why this happened? And by doing those hard things like meditation or like going in the dam or like having a hot sauna and that kind of thing, it quietens that voice because that voice is saying, don't get in that dam. What's wrong with you? It's 3 degrees. We're going to get hypothermia. That's a really bad idea. But I go in anyway. And there's something about doing those things that chattery part of your brain doesn't want you to do that quietens down that part of the mind. And that's a big part of my routine is doing those difficult things in order to make me not such a pain to live with. Yeah. So that's one of my big things is exercise.
Yeah, very smart. Do you have any others?
I take a lot of superfoods, like a lot. Like you'd think after 20 years I'd be over them, but I'm not at all. Like
Are they all your own?
Yeah, of course, everything. And that's the thing. That's how we come up with new products as well. We will look at like we've just released, it's going to be available probably from tomorrow, the next day, but like an activated charcoal product. Because activated charcoal, it just in capsules. Because activated charcoal is amazing for like, if you've got a stomach ache or for removing heavy metals from the body, or if you accidentally eat something you're not meant to, or, when I first met my wife, we were walking around the garden and there was some weed that she'd never seen before. And she's like, I'm going to try a bit. And I'm like, don't try a bit. That's poisonous. Like, I know what that is. And she's like, you're joking. And she puts it in her mouth. I'm like, no, that's poisonous. Don't eat that. And she, for some reason, thought I was joking and just went and had activated charcoal and stuff. But we've had animals as well. They've because avocado is very dangerous for a lot of animals. So we've had goats. She's accidentally fed the goats avocado before, and we've given them charcoal, and they've been fine. And so it's an amazing product, the activated charcoal. But we wanted to take that ourselves. So we're like, let's come up with an activated charcoal that's like really high quality. It's really easy for people to take. It's not messy because it's just in capsules. And so we've just we've just gone and the product's ready to go now and it's about to go online. And so all of our products are based on things we want to take.
That's exciting. Wow, congrats
Yeah,
on that.
Yeah.
So I want to leave with one last question before we say goodbye, and that is for people that want to dabble in superfoods. Maybe they haven't yet. Where should they start? Where would be some of your products that they should start?
I mean, I would say we've got a quiz on our website, which is like created by the nutritionist, our in-house nutritionist, and it kind of asks you a whole lot of simple questions, and they can give you some really good ideas about where's best to start for you. We've got close to 50 different superfoods available now, so there's a lot of different options here. Just go with like something that's going to be a benefit for you. So a lot of the lion's mane is probably the most popular because it's really good for focus and productivity and reducing brain fog. And, it's Australian grown and it's freeze dried and it's a whole food rather than an extract. And it's a really high quality lion's mane product. And it's probably my favorite. And so that's a really good place. I think that's where a lot of people start because lion's mane's very popular at the moment. And so I think a lot of people buy the lion's mane, go, oh, wow, this is incredible. And then go, well, what else is there that is good for me as well? So maybe the lion's mane's a really good place for people to start.
That's where I started. Then I moved on to, I'm looking at my the naked greens. Then I moved on to the turmeric morning amla, I think it's pronounced.
Yes.
And I have the hemp oil as well. Just
Amazing.
keep moving on to new one.
Soon you become like me, like you've got 3 cupboards just full of superfoods at home and like there's nowhere to put cups anymore because there's just superfoods everywhere and
you know what? If there's a problem that I had, I wouldn't mind.
Exactly. It's a good problem to have. Exactly.
This has been such a great chat. I feel like I should ask you, when's your business book coming out? Because Matt, do you have a book? Are you going to write a book? Good. You have amazing advice.
I don't think I'm going to write a book because I feel like all of my advice is just stuff that I've found from other people, because I've always wanted to learn. I've always wanted to get better. And so like I listen to all these different podcasts and I read all these different business books and like, my wife will go, what are you reading now? And I'd be like, how to write email marketing that doesn't suck. And she'll just roll her eyes. Like, she's reading some incredible novel and I'm reading about email marketing. But I love all that stuff. But I think for business owners, I think it's people don't realize what a hard slog it can be. And for the first 5 years, we were paying ourselves $100 a week just to be able to buy some food, and there was no money in it whatsoever. but we kept persevering because we believed in what we were doing and believed in, the fact that we were going to be helping all these people. And it was a business and a product range that we really believed in. And I think if you get into a business, so when I was 25, I started this business called Easy Shoes because I'd heard about Zappos in the US, which was like a massive shoe company. And I was like, wow, no one's doing this in Australia. I'll start my own online shoe company in Australia. And I got all the photos and I made all these deals with these shoe companies to buy all their leftover stuff. And I set up the website. And then one day I was sitting down outside in summer and I was like, I barely wear shoes. Why am I starting I hate shoes. Why am I starting a shoe business? And I realized then that that business has to be something you believe in because for a lot of time, at least the first couple of years, it's going to be, it's going to be a struggle and you have to really believe in what you're doing. And I think that's really important to believe in what you're doing. But I also think it's really important to be aware of your own natural rhythms and rather than trying to force yourself to work when you don't feel like it, trust that you're going to come back to it and you're going to feel like working another day. Because that's what happens to me is, I'll wake up in the morning and be like, I can't be bothered working today. I'm going to spend the whole day in the garden. But then that night I'll be inspired and I'll work for 6 hours, until I go to sleep at 11 o'clock at night or whatever it is. And I think there's something to be said as a business owner, you don't have to clock on and off. So you can go with your natural rhythm and much more. And when you feel like working, work then. And when you don't feel like working, do the other stuff you enjoy. Take time off and exercise or, do some hobbies or hang out with your family, whatever it is. Don't be so hard on yourself to be like, no, I need to work now because it's 9 a.m. so it's time to work. Have a bit more flexibility in that and go with your natural rhythms and go and work when you feel inspired to work because that's when you're going to do good work anyway. And now, especially in the online space has grown so much over the last 5 years or so. It's become such a massive competitive industry that I think it's no longer enough just to put something out there. With my first business, the website was ridiculous. It was just all GIFs floating around, and it was just awful and ugly. And when I go back and look at it, I'm like, how do people even find how to buy stuff? You know, it's just like weird images everywhere. But like these days, there's a much higher standard, you know, and websites are beautiful now, and the information's so well set out. And I think, you know, if you're not going to do good work, then don't work. Do something else, you know, and come back to it when you feel like you're ready to do, you know, the best work you can put out, and put that out. And yeah.
That is a beautiful thing to finish this episode off on. Thank you. Wow. What a great chat. I've really enjoyed our conversation. There's just one beautiful thing after another to support the business community. So we're going to leave the show notes, like links to the quiz and all, you know, where to go get your supplements. My favorite, lion's mane as well. Yeah. So Justin, thank you so much for being here. Much, much appreciated. The listeners will love you. Any last comments before we say goodbye?
Nah, had a really good time, and thanks for having me on.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. See you.